Today I want to show you how to meal prep a sheet pan pizza that's relatively low in calories and high in protein. And you don't typically get protein in your pizza crust, and to solve this unique problem we need a unique solution. So to do that we're calling on something called vital wheat gluten, and per serving, which is 1/4 of a cup or 30 grams, it has 120 calories and 24 grams of protein. So it's almost pure protein, similar macros to protein powder, but we're going to use it to complement our pizza dough. But we're going to combine both all-purpose flour and vital wheat gluten to make our crust, and I want to show you how to do that next. This is everything you'll need for the dough. To form the dough, we'll be using a big bowl and also a food scale to weigh everything out. Starting off by adding 410 grams of all-purpose flour to the bowl. Next is 100 grams of vital wheat gluten. Then we'll be doing 6 grams of salt. Then 5 grams of instant rise yeast. Then mix it all together till thoroughly combined. After the dry ingredients have been mixed, you can add in 15 grams of your choice of oil. I'm using this avocado oil just because that's what I have on hand. You can also use olive oil. After you've added the 15 grams of oil to the dry ingredients, you can give it a mix. After that has been well combined, I have 365 grams or 365 milliliters of water in this coffee pot that I'm going to slowly add to the mixture. Once it's starting to look dry and crumbly like this, you want to dampen your hand and mix it all together so the dry ingredients are well combined. Once all the dry ingredients have been incorporated into the ball, what you want to do, lay down a little bit of flour on your countertop, because you're going to put your dough ball on the countertop, and this just helps the dough ball form and not stick to the counter. And then now you're just going to roll it out. You want to make sure your countertop is wiped down and clean prior to doing that. But once the dough ball is formed, you just put it right back in the big bowl you used. Oh, and before covering the bowl, you should spray the top with some non-stick spray. So a little bit. And cover the top of the bowl and let it rest for, at least 2 hours. While we're waiting for the dough to rise, it's time to make the sauce. And at the store, all they had was this Cento peeled tomatoes. I normally get the crushed tomatoes, but we'll have to crush them ourselves today. And to do that, I'll be using a blender. For the sauce, I'll add 6 grams of salt. We'll be using 2 grams of garlic powder. You can always season to your preference. If you like it sweeter, you can add some sweetener. I'm just going to use salt and garlic powder. And we'll top it off and blend it. And here's what the sauce looks like. Now I'm just going to add it to a container here. I'll store this in the fridge and use it whenever I need it. Alright, so the dough has been resting for about 2 hours and it's risen now. So I'm going to place it on the sheet pan here. First, line it with non-stick spray. You don't want the crust to stick to the pan. I'm going to make sure the edges are covered too. I'm going to stretch it out a little just to make it easier to spread. Then I'm just going to try to push it to the corners. This is my method where I just kind of press down on it. After a few minutes it seems to spread easier. It seems to stay. Just be patient as you're kneading the dough. You don't want to tear it at all. After about a minute of pushing it out to the edges. This is as far as I've gotten the pizza dough. I'm just gonna cover it for about 15 minutes, let it rest, and it should be easier to spread after it rests for a little longer. While we wait for the dough to set, I'm preparing some of the toppings. So I'm gonna make this a supreme pizza, and I'm cooking mushrooms, onions, and peppers in this pan that I season with salt, pepper, and garlic powder. All right, the veggies are done cooking. This is more than I would typically use. I just had a bunch of mushrooms that would have gone bad if I didn't use them today. So a lot of volume, a lot of veggies, but not a bad thing. I think it'll still taste pretty good on the pizza. All right, waited about 15 minutes. Now let's see if the dough is easier to manipulate. Prior to doing that, I'm gonna spray my hands with a little bit of non-stick spray. It just helps the dough not stick to my fingers. Start pressing it to the edge again. There you go. Now it's full coverage of the pan, which is our goal. Hopefully it doesn't move back inward. Now once you got full coverage of the pan, or at least you're satisfied with the crust, you can start adding your toppings and sauce as well. All right, that looks perfect. Now time to add the sauce and the toppings. So I got a scale here. I'm gonna weigh out my pizza sauce. You can also use a pre-made store-bought pizza sauce. I just like this Cento crushed tomatoes. Sauce it up however you like. I don't like it super saucy, but if you do, go ahead. It's not really much calories anyway. That is 200 grams on the dot. That looks good to me. Next, you want to add on your cheese. I'm just going to use this pre-shredded part-skim mozzarella cheese. That's about 200 grams of cheese. And then now I'll be adding the veggies, and I got sauteed mushrooms, bell peppers, and onions on here. Spread it evenly throughout the pizza. And lastly, time to add the turkey pepperoni. That's what it looks like prior to going into the oven. So I'll just be baking this in the oven at 425 for usually about 25 minutes, but we'll keep an eye on it to make sure it cooks all the way through and the crust is crispy. All right, here's what it looks like out of the oven. So I let the pizza cool for about 5 minutes. Now I'm going to transfer it to a cutting board prior to cutting it. So the transfer from the sheet pan to the cutting board was harder than I expected. I thought I'd just be able to lift it out because I had done that in the past, but this time I didn't want to risk tearing the pizza, so I decided to cut the pizza in the sheet pan and then transfer each slice one by one to the cutting board. I typically don't include all these veggies on the pizza when I made it in the past, but this time I did because I didn't want the veggies to go bad. And here's what it's looking like once it's cut and portioned out. All right, so here's the final product. I'm gonna enjoy these. You can divvy up the sheet pan pizza however you like. It's great because you can either cook it for your whole family or friends, or you can meal prep it for the week, which is what I'm gonna do. One pro tip, if you want the crust a little more crispy, if you have a stovetop that's big enough for your sheet pan, you can turn it on a low to medium heat and let the crust cook, and that'll prevent burning the toppings and just allow the bottom to cook. But you got to keep an eye on it. You only want to do that for a minute or two, otherwise you risk burning the crust. My tips when reheating this pizza for future use: if you have an air fryer, Highly recommend using it. I usually do like 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 5 minutes, and it comes out even crispier than when it was taken out of the oven. And another pro tip for you, when storing the pizza and reheating it, I like to store it in aluminum foil if I know I'm going to reheat it from home, because I'm going to use the air fryer if you have an air fryer. And this way I can just put the aluminum foil down on a pan and I don't have to do dishes afterwards, and I don't have to wash a Tupperware container to store the pizza in. So I'm going to heat this up now and I'll show you how it looks after it's cooked in the air fryer. Reheat the pizza in the air fryer at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 to 5 minutes depending on your desired crispiness. If you have an air fryer, I highly recommend using it to reheat the pizza. If not, an oven is the second best option, and then the microwave is the third best option. I'll put the macros on the screen for 1 serving of this Sheetpan pizza, and if you give this one a try, let me know what you think. I also want to give credit to Exercise for Cheat Meals. I basically copied his recipe and then just modified and tweaked it here and there to make it fit my preferences and what equipment I have available. But he's a wizard in the kitchen. He experimented a ton to find a pizza recipe that still has flavor and tastes good while also being macro friendly. So if you want to check out his video, I'll link it down in the comments below.